Welcome to Building People, Companies, and Careers, brought to you by AccruePartners. I'm Amy Pack.
And I'm Patty Comer. We're your host on this journey through the vibrant business landscape in the Queen City.
This podcast is an extension of our mission statement at AccruePartners, where we have spent over 20 years fostering connections and building relationships.
Whether you're a client, candidate, or business influencer in Charlotte, this podcast is for you.
We are immensely grateful for your support throughout our journey, and now through this podcast, we're excited to share the stories that have defined our path.
So let's dive in.
Let's do it. Welcome back to Building People, Companies, and Careers. I'm your host, Amy Pack. At AccruePartners, we are passionate about connecting candidates, clients, consultants, and thought leaders in the business community. Today, I am excited to have a special guest with me, Nick Marocchini, VP of FP&A at Amerit Fleet Solutions. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So, Nick, I always like to start out with the typical interview question. Tell me about yourself.
Yeah, happy to. So, Nick Marocchini, VP of FP&A at Amerit Fleet Solutions. Born and raised in Somers, Connecticut. I live down in Charlotte. I've been here for about 8 years now. I live with my wife and 2 daughters, Olivia, who's 2, and Gianna, who will be 4 months next week. From a career perspective, I moved down to Charlotte with a company called United Technology Corporations. They were at the time headquartered on Tyvola. I've since worked in multiple roles since then. I've done public and PE companies. I have a preference. I like PE, but we can get to that later and why. I met Keith, and I'll talk to you about my transition to Amerit. I met Keith by messaging him on LinkedIn.
Right.
This was back in August, and I wanted to just get to know him. I'm a big fan of networking, so wanted to know some Charlotte leaders. And we met for 30 minutes. It was a great conversation. Fast forward 4 months later, he's moving over to Amerit Fleet as CFO. They gave me a call, and then I landed the job shortly after. So we joined in January, and it's been a great ride ever since.
Yeah. So out of curiosity, most individuals looking for a job are a bit hesitant to directly reach out to someone and just take an opportunity to network and get to know them. So I commend you for that, because I always tell people you should always work to network. And I always also encourage people that, outside of the typical application process, maybe that you doesn't hurt to reach out and let someone know that you've applied to the job or you're in process. What was it that gave you, I guess, the motivation to put yourself out there?
Yeah, I think it's a priority of mine to meet new people in Charlotte, whether it's for, career or personal. And I love meeting people who are, well-respected leaders in the finance organization. So for me, when I heard Keith's name, I heard a few others. I reached out to a few, by the way.
Yeah.
Not all responded, but Keith did.
Of course he did.
Of course he did. Yeah, it was really easy for me to, want to follow a leader like that after our conversation. You could tell he's genuine. He invests in his team. He gives you the experience you need to grow. So for me, it was a really easy way to reach out and kind of get to know him.
Mm-hmm. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
So I want to backtrack for one quick second. You moved to Charlotte from Connecticut. You were with United Technologies.
That's right.
Did you move here for that job, or did they move you here, or were you working for them there? What was that?
Yeah, so great question. When I was working in Connecticut, I met one of my first mentors, Chuck Welfare. He was living down in Charlotte at the time. He was an executive at UTC. And we had talked about career paths, where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do. And so, he flew me down to Charlotte. I was down for maybe 12 hours. I flew down in the morning, did a bunch of speed dating interviews, met a bunch of people, flew out that night, and then had a few different opportunities I could choose from. I ended up choosing one at Carrier, which was one of their portfolio companies up in Huntersville. Mm-hmm. So they relocated me down. The plan was to be down for 1 to 2 years maybe, but we're rooted here now, and I consider myself a Charlottean. But it just goes to show how important it is to network and have mentors, and really what it can do for you going forward.
Well, most people, once they get to the Queen City, they don't want to leave the Queen City.
Yeah, so. I'm one of them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I am too. I moved here 25 years ago from Atlanta. Wow. So All right, so one of the things that I wanted to touch on a little bit, obviously the title of the podcast is Building People, Companies, and Careers. We had the opportunity to place you with Keith, and then lo and behold, didn't know that you actually had met each other, but you've been on both sides of the equation now.
Yeah.
You've been a candidate and you've gone through the process, and it was a pretty speedy process, if I remember. It was like speed dating, if I recall.
That's right.
And then you've also now have had the opportunity to work with AccruePartners as you've looked to build out your team. And we've been fortunate to have that. I guess, share with me a little bit about that experience, because, you know, we always say a candidate's a client's a candidate, and you've now come full circle with us.
Yeah.
Why don't you, I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, no, you know, I've been on both sides of the equations, and I've learned kind of tips and tricks and what to do and what not to do on both sides. When I'm interviewing for an opportunity, like, I'm very curious to know what the company's priorities are, how do they invest in the people, what are the gaps and the challenges that they're trying to solve, does my skill set marry up to that, and can I help achieve those goals? And you know, try to pair myself with something that's not going to be too strenuous, but something where I can stretch myself, learn, grow, and help the organization. On the flip side of the table, when I'm interviewing someone, I'm always genuinely curious about what they know about their current organization. So I'll ask questions like, you know, what's your revenue size? How is your team structured, right? They sound basic and trivial, but if people know the answers to those questions, it signals that they're curious individuals, they're asking the right questions, they're probably a valued player on their team. The other thing I look for is like someone who's willing to roll up their sleeves, right? Like, get in the data, right? Like, you know, dig in the trenches, find, you know, solutions. You know, financial reporting is more just than, you know, reporting the numbers. It's also helping, you know, inform decisions, and there's a future outlook to it as well. So those are the kind of things I look for when I'm on both sides of the table.
Yeah. Had you ever worked with a firm prior to us placing you at Amerit Fleet?
I have in the past. A lot of my opportunities, I was fortunate enough to have to come about knowing people. So, you know, going back to networking, like, I've connected with a lot of Charlotte finance leaders, and just in general, even outside of finance. And some of the opportunities I've had were word of mouth. So I've done a little bit of both.
I think I remember you saying that you'd always been really lucky. You didn't have to overly interview in the past.
That's right.
People knew you, and so it made the process a little bit more comfortable.
Yes.
Maybe you always want to show up as your best self, but
Yeah, that's right.
yeah. Okay. So you built your career in finance. You've been in public and private, as you mentioned before. You're now with a PE-backed national operation. But what are some of the defining moments that shaped how you operate as a finance leader today?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's more of a culmination of events that I've experienced throughout my career. There's a few, you know, that come to mind. Like, I'll give you an example. One of my mentors down here in Charlotte, he was in the marketing department, and we were sending out financial reports, and one of the things he said to me was like, hey, this is a great model, it's a great report, it's formatted beautifully, it makes sense. He's like, but I don't know what the message is. What's the takeaway? And it kind of flipped a switch for me, because what it taught me was that finance isn't just about speaking finance. You have to know your audience, and you have to flip hats. So if you're sending a report to someone in finance, they might get it right away. But if you're sending it to someone in marketing or HR or sales, like, you need to put on that hat and, you know, communicate differently than you would to someone else.
Right, right. Is there you mentioned that you had a mentor that helped you identify that. Was there a defining moment there?
Yeah, I would, maybe not a specific moment. I would say that, like, over my career, I've had, you know, an opportunity to work with some really great leaders that have taught me a lot of different things. You know, Keith Weidman comes to mind, Keith Bull, Jeremy Russell. I learned different things from all these different people. So it's more of a, you know, combination of events, I think, that, you know, attribute to where I'm at today.
Pulling different threads together.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. So you're now at a PE-backed company that sits close to the numbers that matter the most, the cash, capital allocation, margins. How do you define the role of FP&A in an organization like Amerit today, and how do you balance being a steward of numbers and a strategic partner to operations and the broader leadership team? So you touched on that a little bit, but you have to have a balance there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a common misconception that finance is about the numbers, but I believe finance is about decisions. When you think about partnering with other departments in the organization, be it operations or sales, right? Like, you need to build that trust with them up front so that, when you bring data to them, when you bring a decision to them, they trust your data and they value your opinion, and they can make an informed decision that'll hopefully impact the company going forward. So to me, it's all about building trust, building relationships, and building a great team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So speaking of building a great team, you've had to build a team. What is it that you look for in talent today? I mean, just accounting and finance talent is harder to find today than in the last 15 years because there's a shortage as people, the enrollment rates in schools dropped in 2009 and 10. They didn't pick up until 2024. So we have a 14-year gap, if you will. And so people are having to be a little bit more creative, think a little bit more outside of the box. Obviously, you have to have the technical skills. But what is it that you look for in as you build out your team?
Yeah, I'll tell you how it's changed over time. So like, I remember one of my first interviews when I was interviewing someone for my team. I would say I focused like 100% on the resume, which is very important. I don't want to belittle it, but I was looking at the resume and saying, does it check the box? Does it check the box?
Right.
Like, technical skills, is it matched? Now, where I'm at, when I interview people, like, the resume is very important. They need to have the skills, but now I'm looking for the connection. I'm looking for the person. Is this someone who is, willing to roll up their sleeves? Is this person someone who's curious about the company? Are they curious about the strategic initiatives of the company, right? Like, when you find someone like that, they're going to be invested in you and invested in the company, invested in their career. So it's shifted from, just resume based to now like a holistic approach. Now, I also would argue that when I look at candidates, their skill set doesn't need to match up one for one where I'm at. One of the great things about leadership is the ability to coach and grow people. And so if I'm, hiring for a candidate, I can find someone who's maybe like right below where I'm looking for.
Yeah.
But to me, I see it as a great opportunity to help grow that person. So those are kind of the things I look for.
As organizations grow, especially in the PE-backed environment, we are seeing more and more PE-backed organizations in Charlotte. They all want talent with PE experience, which is becoming harder and harder. Yeah. Because you have to have more people grooming that talent.
Yes.
And so we're at a little bit of an inflection point. But from your perspective, what needs to be true from a financial and operational standpoint, data systems, processes to support that scale, and what needs to be true on the talent side to keep pace?
Yeah, I think process and people are key. Systems are as well, but systems don't fix broken processes. They will enable both good and bad ones, but it's not the fix. To me, I think the most important thing, ground rooting, is building the processes and streamlining. Especially in PE, if you think about their goal, it's to grow a business, right? So if you're growing a business, just like you're building a house, you have to have a sound foundation. So to me, getting the processes corrected and fixed in the beginning so that you can use them to scale is really important. Systems is another really important thing, and a lot of PE companies are dealing with this today. You're buying a mom and pop or a startup company, they might not have invested heavily in software and systems. So I think that's important. There's a lot of tools out there, consolidation tools, BI, AI, that are important in growth. But then I think, foundationally, the most important thing is the people. You get the right people in, they'll follow you, they'll follow the company, they get bought into the vision, bought into the strategy.
Early in the conversation, you said that you really like the PE component.
I do.
I guess tell me a little bit about that, and because you have public, PE, then back to public, and now back to PE.
Yeah.
So you've definitely got a draw there. What is that?
I think what draws me most to PE is just the amount of empowerment you have, right? Like, not to say you don't have it in public companies, but generally speaking, you're more in a swim lane. You might be more siloed. You can echo ideas, but they might, die down. When you're in PE, it's like everyone's hunting for the same thing. We're all trying to grow the business. We're all aligned to the strategy. You have a great idea, it can get implemented. And then when you look back in 2-3 years, you're like, wow, that was a great idea. It worked.
Yeah.
That was mine. Like, you see things come to fruition. So I think that's the most exciting part to me about PE. Where I'll be in the future, I'm not sure, but I think I'd tend to, lean towards staying in PE for the rest
Well,
of my time.
it gives you a little bit of an entrepreneurial flair.
Yes.
And some ownership.
100%. A lot more ownership. Yeah, without a doubt.
Okay. So we wouldn't be having a conversation if we didn't talk about technology and AI, like the things that everybody talks about today.
Yes.
As you look at those becoming increasingly important finance and across the enterprise, how do you think about leveraging those tools to drive better forecasting, decision making, and efficiency? And are y'all doing any of this at Amerit Fleet currently?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's worth saying that the landscape today is going to change tomorrow.
Right.
When I think about the introduction to AI, which it's already here, but how it, infiltrates into the process, you think about, from a financial standpoint, collecting data, analyzing data, output, making decisions. I think where it's trickling in now, for the most part, is in the beginning, right? We're leveraging a lot of AI for data collection, right? So it's taking us less time to pull things manually. We can systematize it. I think eventually it'll start trickling all the way down. I still think there'll always be, you won't necessarily use AI just to make every decision for you. There's always going to be, the back and forth and the human involvement.
Yeah, human in the loop.
100%. But the best case is, like, if there's a process that takes you 60 minutes and 15 minutes of that is, data download, and you can automate that, you just streamline a large majority of that process.
Right.
So I think it'll evolve, but one of the things that I think will be an emerging, interesting, new opportunity is teaching people how to prompt it.
Right.
So, like, if there was a robot in the room with us right now and we said, get out to the car as fast as you can, it'll probably just run through the wall, right? But framing it up and building guidelines that says, like, you have to use doors and stairwells, like, it sounds trivial, but that's really important, right?
Yeah.
So I think there'll be a huge opportunity in the future for, classes and seminars and teaching people how to use it and how to prompt it properly.
What are y'all using? Any AI technology enabled tools within the organization now?
Yeah, we're starting to use Claude. We've got, some guys on the team who are wizards with it. They're super sharp. We're already seeing the benefits. They're, shaving things in half in terms of time and process and all that.
Yeah.
Data collection. It's really cool. It's actually really fascinating.
Yeah, and it shows up better than a spreadsheet.
100%. 100%.
We're using it in our finance team at AccruePartners. Like, oh wow, that's beautiful. I'll actually pay attention now.
Yeah. I think it's here to stay, and I think that the people who embrace it will outperform the people who choose to ignore it.
Yeah. Claude did come fast and furious in the last 5 months.
It did.
It was kind of here, and then it was like here.
Yeah, it's exciting.
And you have 2 young kids, so it'll be interesting how it shapes the
I
future
know.
of their education and what that looks like.
It's kind of terrifying.
It is a little bit scary to think about it.
It is.
Because there is a lot to be learned from problem solving.
Right.
And with all these tools, you don't have to do as much of that.
Right. It's right at your fingertips.
Yeah, but then what's going to be their human in the loop?
I know. Time will tell.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of time will tell, as you look ahead, how do you see the FP&A function continuing to evolve, and what capabilities will define the next generation of finance leaders?
Yeah, I think finance leaders will spend a lot less time analyzing and a lot more time, decision making. I think AI is a part of that. It's going to enable us to get to the answer quicker so that we can make decisions quicker. It'll be interesting to see where we go. I mean, Claude has come in and kind of taken things over. Other AI streams have as well. So that prediction could certainly change tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I see it, automating a lot of the more manual work that most finance professionals do today.
Yeah. But what's interesting about that? Like, that manual work is entry-level work to some degree.
Yeah.
And it's like these college grads are having a really hard time, and like we're going to have to close this gap somewhere, because we need them to skill up to learn so that they can become the future middle managers, leaders,
Right.
then C-suite and whatnot.
Right.
And so it's going to be interesting to see how that looks, because it's been a 2 to 3 year period that entry-level jobs have been hit pretty significantly.
Yeah, I would agree.
I don't have the answer, but
Likewise.
we'll figure it out, or somebody will.
Somebody will.
All right. So any other advice that you would give to someone hiring finance professionals, or if someone was looking for a finance role?
Yeah, I would say like be curious, like learn the company vision, learn where they invest into people, figure out what your strengths are and how it aligns with the role or the opportunity. And then on the flip side, like look for people who are genuinely curious, look for people who are hungry. There's a lot of them coming out of school now. There are a bunch of go-getters out there. Charlotte's a great market, as you know.
Right.
But yeah, be curious, be courageous, take a risk. Don't be afraid to ask questions. That's how you learn. And yeah, just go for it.
There you go. Be positive.
Be positive.
All right. So rapid fire.
Okay.
What was your first real career lesson?
Great question. I would say don't chase titles, chase experience.
Excellent. Where was that for you?
For me, like a lot of people are hungry to get to the next level, senior analyst, manager, director, what have you. When I think about like my career, I think about the end state, like where do I want to be? And so I think, little of titles today and more of like, what experience do I need between now and where I want to eventually be? And how do I get that experience?
Yeah. One quote that you're known for or saying.
I would say progress over perfection.
Okay. Yeah.
Don't let the details get in the way of making progress. Remember the end goal.
Yeah. From the analyst, don't get analysis paralysis.
Yeah, exactly.
Share with us a leadership trait that you value the most in others.
Ooh, curiosity.
You love that one.
Yeah,
and it keeps coming up.
It keeps coming up. To me, it's really important and really telling of someone's ambition.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with not being curious, but like when someone is, generally curious about the business or how things operate, like, and you can tell that through the questions they ask in interviews, it signals like that's probably going to be a highly successful person. They're inquisitive. They want to know more. They want to learn. They want to take on more. So like those are the types of people I look for. That's probably my favorite.
They're interested.
They're interested. Yeah.
Yeah. We have someone at AccruePartners. He's always like, be curious, just double click into that.
Yeah, I love that phrase.
All right, so your favorite spot in Charlotte for a great meal?
Got to be Alexander Michael's.
Okay.
The honey chicken pasta is to die for. Great atmosphere. Got to check it out if you haven't.
And where did you work that you were near Alexander Michael's?
I lived in Dilworth, and so it was close enough where we would go there often for date night. Yeah, great spot.
It is it's an oldie but goodie.
Oldie but goodie.
Yeah, so, all right, well, fabulous. Well, it was great having you on the show and learning more about you, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.